Well, good morning. It's great that you're all here, and a very warm welcome to the, annual State of the Open, the address about the state of the nation in regards to openness, transparency, and freedom of information by Fiona Krakenbürger and Arne Semsrott. We're from the Open Knowledge Foundation, and every year we have something like a theme. Last year it was this. We're waiting for something to happen, that the state of openness and transparency, the theme was loading. We're waiting for something to happen. This year, 2018, how should I put it? There is something happening, but we're not sure if it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Right. So things are happening. Things have been happening since last year. Last time we were together. And yeah, not everything has become better. For example, comparing last year, we showed the progress in terms of freedom of information legislation, and this is the status in 2017 compared to 2016. The only thing that changed is the year in the corner. Here, take a look. Yeah, 16, 17, and this year something happened, and we took that as an opportunity to start a prize for the worst freedom of information legislation in Germany. And the first prize goes to Hesse. The worst IFG of all time, the worst legislation regarding freedom of information. So, aside from the fact that you can't put any requests through police to the Office for the Protection of the Constitution, the business office is excluded, and also almost all communes. I think that deserves another round of applause. The only thing that's worse is the states without any legislation at all. And just so you know, that's Bavaria, Saxonia, and Lower Saxonia. And we have another prize to give away for the first open data law in Germany. It looks like this. Can you scroll down a bit? No, that's all. It's also the shortest open data law of all time, but it's also the only one in all of Germany, and actually in the whole world. Because this open data law is well intended, but not necessarily politically desired, because this might as well have been part of the Freedom of Information Act. And this law says, well, public organizations are supposed to open their data, but there's no legal requirement for them, so you can't sue them. And we're hoping, of course, there will still be changes, but in the version that is currently in law, it's much weaker than any of the FOIAs. So, yeah, it's the only open data law in Germany, but it's not going to remain that way, because the federal government and the states have agreed that all states should have one like that now. And there's already a first draft, and Baden-Württemberg already created a first draft that will soon take effect, and that law requires all state institutions to open the data, but nothing on lower levels of the communities. So we can already see which direction it takes, and we can already see when we're asking the communes to open their data. The organization of cities and communes has published a statement saying, well, actually, the communes should rather be selling important data sets, especially they were talking about climate data, about traffic data, especially regarding Dieselgate. And that's where you can see what the problem is in the approach of selling data, especially particulate matter data. That's data that should be available to the public for free, because exactly there the intransparency is a large problem in the entire process. So we stated very clearly this idea of selling data that is very 80s It's very last century. We have to change that, and the open data legislation has to ensure that at all states at all levels of government, data is becoming available for free. Another thing might change because Germany joined the Open Government Partnership. There's a national action plan that the federal government is following now, and the Open Government Network is monitoring the progress in Germany. And if you look closer at the different requirements, you see that the ambitions are very low because it's all very vague, or they're things that the federal government is already doing anyway and that are just put into this plan. So we're just going to go and assume that Germany is going to fulfill all of these requirements they put to themselves. But it's probably much more important to look at the next national action plan. It's going to start in a year from now, because that is supposed to not only apply for the federal government but also for the state governments. And we're hoping that there's going to be quite some requirements in there that would actually make a difference. And with that, let's go to the news from the universe of the Open Knowledge Foundation.
Yeah, there are proofs of intelligent life, which show that openness can work. And we looked a bit around in the projects and what happens in the frame of the OKF universe and our partners of the organization. And one of the projects I want to introduce to you is the Syrian Archive. They had a talk here yesterday. It's a project that has been supported by the Open Knowledge Fund, and it's an initiative from Syria. It's a team of out of Syria. They document human rights violations and verify them. It's to create some kind of responsibility if there ever is some kind of tribunal, and the team does research investigation, and they uncovered that Belgium is shipping sarin gas or two basic ingredients for sarin gas to Syria, and they found this out by just questions under the open information laws legislation, and they you can read about that on the Syrian Archive, and that's a good example why business data and trade data is really important. A second example, Wahlsalons, voting saloons. It's a project of the Open Knowledge Labs and Code for Germany. It has been a three-part three-part series. It was about the Bundestag election last year, and they worked with data and showed what is possible with open data and tools and with participation. And what is special about that, we worked together with the head of the election, and we exchanged on the eye-to-eye level. And it was a come together of users of data and producers of data, the head of the election. And on our blog you can read about that. We wrote down what happened there, what are the consequences of that. And one thing I want to point out is a few days or weeks ago, the head of the election published all results of all voting districts since 1980 for a free download, and that shows that's really important to talk to each other constantly, and so that's a good result. And I really like how they when this showed up at the home page of the head of the election, a lot of emojis popped up for me, and I'm really happy about that. Okay, credits go to the community because they worked hard on that, and they showed what can be achieved. Thanks to you. Statistics show that only two short texts are read, so that's just short text. So the Open Knowledge Foundation, together with Algorithm Watch, created a new project, Open Schufa, where we want to try to revert engineer the algorithm of the Schufa. Yesterday has been a talk about that. It's available online. We want to have as much as people as possible to request their Schufa score and to give the data to us, and with this data we wanna revert engineer the Schufa algorithm, and I hope that's the first project in this area, and we can use that knowledge we gain in other fields as well. And I think that's a really important topic in the next years. So if policing can be reverse engineered with similar processes, that's a good thing, because currently these algorithms are kind of business secrets for companies and they are not public accessible, but if the state is using that, they should be checkable by the public. If that's not working out, then we maybe try to sue so that we get access to this algorithm. We sue about based on the freedom of information legislation. There's this Transparenz and there have been some rulings pro transparency. So last week we won against the German Parliament, and so documents related to financing of parties need to be published by the Parliament now. We sued the state parliament of Rhineland. We sued a lot of state parliaments, and
Das Verwaltungsgericht in Magdeburg hat gesagt, dass das Urheberrecht im Informationsfreiheitsrecht nicht vorsteht.
And the Magdeburg Court of Administrative Court has ruled that the laws have clear priority over each other, so if there's no special law protecting information, then the public has a right to actually see it. And that's a very important part to approach all these different authorities and request nicely, but then also be willing to use the laws that are available. So much for the news from the OKF universe. There's also some news from the future, because a lot of things are going to happen in the next few years, especially regarding the registry for transparency. We already talked about it last year, and this registry is a registry of beneficial ownership, of private ownership, and it's about private owners of companies being made public. So this is mostly about companies based in the EU. So Brussels wants beneficial owners of especially postbox companies to be public and to especially fight tax evasion. And Germany created this registry last year, but they didn't do a good job of it because the public does not have a way of accessing it. Journalists have a way to see who's the beneficiary of a company or corporation, but they can only do it with the public interest background, and they already checked and saw that lots of data is actually incomplete. So the good news is, a few weeks ago, that a new registry will come soon. Germany has tried to oppose it for a while, but Brussels has decided that a registry for transparency has to be created also in Germany that is really public and publicly available. So in the coming years, we will all be able to access this, and what we especially like is, doesn't matter, what we like especially is that last year we demanded this, especially in correlation to the Panama Papers and the Paradise Papers, to make this registry publicly accessible, and that is now going to happen, and this is Fiona and Arne being really happy about it. So this is what I found in Creative Commons searching for bathing suit. Okay, let's talk about the coalition contract of 2018. You probably heard about it. We have a new government. They had a contract for their coalition, and the Social Democrats have started off really ambitiously, but then deferred to the Christian Democrats. What we would have wished for was a whistleblower law, which is not coming now, but might come through the European Union. What we would have wanted was a lobby registry. That was also one of the demands of the Social Democrats. It's also not going to happen. What we're going to get instead is a second open data law. So next year there will be a prize for the second open data law. We're not quite sure yet what it means. It might also include a public
Tages damit beantwortet, dass Horst Seehofer demnächst für genau diese Transparenzthemen zuständig sein wird.
A public right to access the information, and it might be that Horst Seehofer is still going to be in the government and responsible for it, but he might also just be busy with other things. So much about the coalition. We have to track what's happening to the open data law, but okay. Let's see what kind of gift we have to search for next year for the situation we're going to have a year from now. And there's the picture again. So, yeah, if we want progress in these areas, then we need a transparency legislation. And we already mentioned last year that we're writing one, and we would like to distribute that and share it with other countries and counties. And this transparency law is created by the civil society, and that's also the order we want, that that society is coming together to write this law, and that it's not going to be worked on and reworked, but just applied the same way. And we have our ways. And you can still inform yourself and still participate in the process of writing this legislation. And for progress, we need a real legislation here, preferably on a federal level. And until we have this everywhere, the existing legislation has to be used more to increase the pressure, and that's happening more and more. Last year there was as many information requests towards the federal government as never before. And just yesterday there was a very interesting request to the Ministry of Defense, where a certain M. Beckedal, Markus B., has asked to the Ministry of Defense any and all information about planning, design, and registering a booth at Republica, and that's not the only request going there. If you can see here, there's been quite a number of requests about internal communications in regards to the German army and the Republika, the cost of this booth in front of Republika, and I think in the coming weeks and months there will be some very interesting documents becoming public. And that also shows why it's important to have these rights and to use these rights everyone has. And we're trying to keep pushing that further by handing out prizes. So in the beginning we handed out some prizes, and now we're going to start the new series of prizes, namely the prizes for transparency. We're starting the FOIA championships of Germany. So that means all the ministries have gotten a request from us, a request for information from us, and there are duels between them. So we have this bracket, and whoever first gives us a complete response makes it to the next round. So just in the first round, we have a few really nice pairings here. Horst Seehofer from the Ministry of the Interior versus Angela Merkel. So we sent the requests last week. The Ministry of Defense has already won against the Ministry of Health. Jens Spahn is unfortunately out of the bracket. And we will see in 2 weeks, round 2 will start all the way to the championship at the same time as the World Championship finals in soccer. There will also be the Freedom of Information Championships happening, and there might even be bets. Just come to me after this talk, and I'm happy to take your money and your bets. And in just a few months, we will be able to announce who has been the champion of transparency in Germany, and we are continuing to do our thing to increase transparency further. And we hope that you're going to help us, and that's the State of the Open. Thank you very much.
So, wir haben jetzt noch 10 Minuten.
Okay, we have 10 more minutes. So you can fill it with questions. If you have questions, just come up front towards me or just raise your hand.
Ich kann auch die Zeit nutzen, um meine Eltern zu grüßen, die da hinten sitzen. Hallo.
I would also like to say hi to my parents who are sitting back there. Hey. But yeah, you can also ask questions.
Komm her. Ja, so ein bisschen Beteiligung muss sein.
Ja, moin.
Hi. Last year I heard of a campaign, Gläserne Gesetze, Transparent Laws. What happens there? Are they news to that? Thank you for this question. Yeah, the Open Knowledge Foundation created a campaign, Transparent Laws, together with Abgeordnetenwatch. that was about every federal ministries should publish all of their proposed laws, and the ministries didn't want to do that. And so we have at Abgeordnetenwatch, we published a database with 17,000 laws, and you can now have a list of these laws, and you can click on that, and you can get the the statement on that. And so the ministries decided to proactive publish this then, and now the legislation processes of the ministries start again, and a lot of statements and proposals are not published right now. So the ministries need to decide if they want to publish these proposed laws, proposed legislations and statements to that, like it should be in a democracy, or if we need to have this transparent law part 2.0.
Any other questions? Yeah.
Das nicht aus der Hand. Das ist auch noch viel schlimmer, weil ich will eigentlich nur was.
He's not giving out of sand, but I just want to offer something. I don't actually want to offer something. My name is Anke Domscheit-Berg, and I'm in the government for the Green Party, for the Left Party, and I can actually put formal requests into the process. So if there's any requests that I didn't think of yet and that aren't maybe not yet compatible with the existing legislation, so nothing racist or anything, but please feel free to contact me and I will pass on these requests for you.
Gottes Willen. Genau. Erstmal danke für den Vortrag.
Thanks for the talk. We talk a lot about how it looks like with the open data law legislation, and we see that in the first talks that the people that are responsible for that are lacking manpower in the institutions and are not the most liked colleagues. So what can we do out of our position here? How can we make sure that since we have the laws now that they are taken into effect? I think that's a basic problem there, that institutions often decide by themselves how they use their funding, and they invest in the PR, of course, and hire people there, and in the section of open data and open data requests, we're lacking personnel there, and that's a big problem because the persons dealing with these requests don't have enough resources and have enough manpower, and the institution is not having enough personnel for that. I think it's a difficult question, and of course we need to keep up the pressure, and we need to create a bit pain there, so they provide more resources there, because this law is there, and these laws need to be followed, and so the institutions need to do that. I think the question is hard to answer. There's not one single answer, but there's some experience we made, and the experience we did with the head of the election and with the communal heads of institutions, it showed that if there's a very the pressure is really like that, because there's a huge interest there, and it could be a good lever to generate data for the public. And on Twitter, the head of the election is been shared to. That's a good feedback. And our experience is, if you have found the persons that are that want to have this change, they're really thanking us that we can work on that together, and we create use cases that the people and the public is recognizing that it's real and really useful. Hi, I'm Tim. I'm working for the fraction in a federal in a state parliament, and my question fits good to this what you just said. is there the idea to provide trainings to institutions? That would be great to do something like that, but I don't think that's our task, because we show a use case and we show how it could work, but I wish that there's the institutions develop some kind of awareness for that they do that by themselves. And of course, I'd like to be invited to these academies where these trainings happen. We like to go there and share our knowledge, discuss also on a controversial way. If they want to invite us, we're ready for that. Otherwise, this.
And of course, there's also the open knowledge labs that have good first approaches for these questions to figure out how we can work together. There's lots of informative events from this circle of people. But I think there is a limit to the amount of work we can put in here, and it's up to the different authorities to take up this mantle themselves. Hi, my name is Axel. I'm from Hesse, where we just got this beautiful law that you presented. My question is, do you have anyone in Hesse where you can try to create sustainable change? So apart from the OK Lab Frankfurt, we have discussed at length, especially regarding the Freedom of Information Act, whether it's better to have a bad law or no law at all. And indeed, the fact is that this legislation led to might lead to a downwards trend. So Hesse has now shown which kind of exceptions one can put into this legislation. The other states are going to take a look at that. So yeah, especially when looking at Hesse, I am a little bit out of my depth here. So if you have any idea, please let us know.
Yeah, super.
I'm sorry, that was unintelligible, but I think it's just reaffirming the same question. Thank you very much for the talk, and give him a big hand to Fiona and Arne.